We're going to be talking today about how to fix the disconnect between the PMO and executives, and by extension, project managers and people involved in projects. Because there really does feel like there's a disconnect somewhere, and we're going to try and figure out where it is and how to fix it. And that's going to come down to two different aspects. Sorry, just give me a second while I get Menti working. There we go. That's it. For some reason, that's not doing what I was hoping it would do. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to reshare this, present this. So it's not covered by my Windows bar. There we go. All right, perfect. So there's going to be sort of two bits to this how to fix it piece, right? It's about how you communicate when you're interacting with executives. And it's about, are we delivering the results that the executives want from the project community? So what I'd like to do, hopefully you're all into Mentimeter by now. What I'd like to do is ask you two questions. And if you type your answers in, we'll all be able to see them. So don't put anything too personal in there. But here's the first question. So I want you to imagine that you've got a new boss, right? New senior executive leading the team. And they come to you and they say, what do you do? Tell me what you do. What's your job? Jump on into the Menti and tell me what you do. Just a few words. What do you do? What's your job? What's your role? I'll give you a few seconds to do that. I'm going to use these answers later on, by the way. Oh, look at that. Help marketing make a dream become reality. That's setting the bar high. Nice. Like it. What else? What do you do? Make change happen. IT programs. Vision into reality. Nice. Oh, you guys are fantastic. What else? Company objectives. Love it. Digital transformation projects. Okay. What else do we have? Let's wait for one or two others. Improving patient care. Okay. This is great. You guys are already thinking, most of you are already thinking about what's the value rather than what are the deliverables. There's a few in here, right? So leading digital transformation projects, it's about the projects. We'll come to this. Okay, next question. I want you to think about an individual project now that you're delivering, and tell me about that project, right? Again, this is your new boss speaking. Just tell me quickly about that project. What is it? What's the most important thing you want to tell me about that project? Either a project you're working on personally right now or a key project that you're overseeing as the PMO. Jeepers, we're on a PMI call and nobody's working on projects. Okay, project to make the customer happy. Okay. What else? Tell me more about your projects. Okay, one version of the truth, like it. What else? Anybody else want to share? Here we go. Okay, secure future water resources. Okay, fantastic. Let's see if we can get one or two more. There we go. Automated processes. Here we go. All right, so we've got a few of these. Just take a second to read through these and what they're saying. It's chaos. I love it. I love it. That's a great response. Thank you. We'll talk. We'll try and remember to talk about that a little bit in a while. So we're gonna think about these answers a little bit later on, and what we can learn from that. There's one or two extra ones coming in here. So removing legacy platforms to reduce power consumption space, reducing the time and effort to manage these operations. Fantastic. Digital transformation of finance supply. So we'll try and remember that one a little bit later as well. Okay, let's keep going. Here's some data. This is PMI data for project success and failure rates over time, over a number of years. And I want to pay particular attention to this line, right? This is the project failed, budget lost line. Okay, so this is total car crash. And what I want you to, the number of 30% is important, but I also want you to notice that the line is flat. Okay. The fact that line's flat means that as an industry, we're not doing our job. We're not improving it. Okay. And so that's a bit of a challenge. So let's think about that number, 30%. Just give me a quick thumbs up or something if you commute to work, if you drive to work in the car or on a train or whatever. Hopefully you can do that. Give me a quick thumbs up. Perfect. So imagine if you're driving to work or taking the train, and 1/3 of your journeys, right? So 6 or 7 journeys every month, 6 or 7 days every month, right? Your commute ends like this. Okay, total car wreck. So my question to you is, would you keep that car if 6 or 7 days every month it broke down, caught fire, and just a total disaster? Because I know I wouldn't. I would get rid of that car. And that's what your executives feel like, right? They feel like it's just, it's a total train wreck and projects just aren't getting completed. And, maybe your organization's different. Maybe the number's not that bad. But these are sort of industry-wide numbers, right? And it's got so bad that there was an interesting report a while ago that basically said for IT projects, execs are just so tired that they reckon, 75% of them believe their IT project's doomed before it even begins, right? That's the gap. Okay. If your executives think that about you, there's a problem. And at the end of the day, they're unhappy because they're not getting the value they expect. They're not getting the business results that they expect. Now, what a lot of people do, especially people who've come up through project management and taken on PMO roles, is that they'll then go and start looking at, more templates, more process, more reporting, and they kind of become the process police, right? So if you're walking down the corridor and people are jumping into the bathroom to avoid you, that's a bad sign. Okay. But when you're struggling with projects and the executives are saying, "Hey, come on, get a grip, right? Get control of these projects." It's really tempting to add more templates, more process, more reporting, but it's often a little bit counterintuitive, a little bit counterproductive. Or maybe this is you, where you then start really focusing on the iron triangle, right? And you're really focused on those numbers and those metrics and proving that you're valuable because you deliver projects on time. Well, I got to tell you something. In fact, I'm going to ask a quick question. Thinking back to that thing about, what's your role? Okay. We're here on a PMI webinar. So presumably we're all in project delivery, right? Quick thumbs up on the Menti. Smash that Menti thumbs up. Let me know. Anybody here? Are we all in project delivery? Do we agree with that? We don't agree with that? Yeah, we got some thumbs creeping in there. All right, so there we go. Yes, here we go. Lots of thumbs appearing now. Fantastic. So we're all in project delivery. No, we're not. We're really not. We're here to deliver strategy. We're here to deliver the goals of the business. Okay. And a big part of the change that we need to make is about the mindset, right? That it's not about delivering projects, it's about delivering the strategy. So the iron triangle, on time, on budget, yeah, that's interesting. But that's not the KPI that your executive cares about. The KPI they care about is growing revenue and things like that. All right. So So I'm reminded of a conversation with a friend of mine, and this is why we've got ducks all over this presentation, by the way. And he was presenting his project to the CEO of one of the world's biggest oil and gas companies, and he's doing what project managers tend to do. He was presenting, here's my burn down report and my raid log and my this and my that. And the executive stopped him and he said, Roberto, I don't care if you have a boy duck or a girl duck. I just want eggs, right? Give me the value. Don't tell me about the details of your project. I don't care. Just tell me about the egg, the benefit, the value, and how you're going to protect that value. And this shouldn't be a surprise, right? Because they are egg executives, right? It's right there in the name, executives. Let me just hide that little fella there, right? So, so this is really key, right? There's a whole mindset shift that if you want to bridge the gap to the executives, we need to start thinking more like the executives. And earlier on, I said there are going to be two components to the talk, right? There's how do you communicate, and then how do we deliver results that the executives want. So so let's look at communication. So this is how lots and lots of people tend to behave in the project universe, right? And project land. They walk in, they say, hey, we're the process police and we're here to help you. Does that fill anyone with confidence, by the way? Does anybody feel good when someone says, hey, yes, I'm going to come in, I'm going to give you, I don't think any executive anywhere has said thank you when someone walks in and says, hey, I've got 10 more templates for you to fill in, right? The world doesn't work like that. So if you're using these sorts of words, you're not talking to the executive, right? And the exec's sitting there and they're not hearing what you're saying. This is what they're thinking, right? They're sitting there going, what language is that? I don't understand any of that, right? Are you speaking nerdish to me or something? I don't get it. So we need to sort of change the language. Now, I was actually really impressed earlier on with your answers. Half of the answers were framed in terms of benefits, right? We're trying to reduce cost, or we're trying to improve customer satisfaction, or whatever it is. That's fantastic, and that's what your executives want to hear. But I want you to think about your answer, whether you typed it in or not. I want you to think about your answer to those questions. What do I do? And when somebody asks you about a project, are you speaking in nerdish or dorkies, right? Because if you are, then you are the problem. Okay, in terms of the execution, the executive to project management gap, right? You are the problem because you're not speaking in their language. So here's a question. What language might you use to communicate? Well, I think even this is the wrong question, right? The real question is, what language do your executives use to communicate? So what I'd love to do is just jump back into Menti. If you're not there, jump back into the Mentimeter and give me some of the words that you think you should be using. What's some of the language that your executives use when they're talking about projects and what they want from you? I'll give you a few seconds. What are some of the things that they talk about as being important? Oh, I like show me the money. Love it. Right. Okay. I love these. I love these. Interesting question. Is it the right language they use? Yes. They're running the business, they're paying the bills. Now, that doesn't mean that they couldn't be coached on some things, but fundamentally, we're there to serve the business, not to drive the business. Love it. So you've all got the idea. You know what the language is that the executives use, right? It's all about return on investment. Show me the money, growth, customers, outcomes, accountability, KPIs. What are my KPIs? Speed. Do it all really quickly. I need it tomorrow. Margin. That's another one. If you're in a business, margin. There's a few people I think I saw signed up from the NHS. So if you're in government type or a non-profit, It's about social impact. Right? These are the things that the executives really, really care about. And if you're not talking that language, then you're not talking to them, and you're not serving the needs that they have from a communication point of view. Um, so very often I'm asked when I'm at conferences and things, how do I have that conversation? How do I learn that language? The answer is pretty simple. Just go talk to people. Right? Go talk to your peers across the organization from different departments. Go talk to any executive or leader that'll talk to you, and ask them lots of questions and listen to the language they use. Ask them about their goals. What are the barriers? What are the challenges? What keeps them awake at night? Ask them, how do you do this, and why do you do it that way? Why don't you do it another way? And learn as much about the business and the language and the thinking and the way the business works. Because when you do that, you'll naturally start talking in that language, thinking in that language. And as project leaders, and the PMO in particular, our job is to be translators, right? It's a business function, and it's about helping translate the needs of the business into something that actually gets delivered as a set of outcomes and benefits. Right? So, so go do this. I find that food helps, by the way, when you do this. So, walk around with chocolate bars or muffins, or invite people for a coffee or whatever it may be. And that helps. People will kind of relax and enjoy it and tell you more and really open up. So this is one. Go do that. That really helps. Okay, so we've talked about communication and how you need to think about communicating in the language of the executives. But at the end of the day, that's not enough on its own, right? To be seen to be valuable, you have to add value to the business. Simple as that. You have to add value. So what is value? How do we get to that point? Okay, scary statistic time. Okay, so do you remember that grumpy duck saying, "No, you're there to deliver my strategy"? Well, when you ask employees, what is the strategy of the organization? 95% of them, the answer is, what strategy? Do we have a strategy? I don't know our strategy. So quick, again, jump onto the Menti and give me a quick thumbs up if you feel confident that you know your organization's strategy and you know what you need to deliver, what you need to do to deliver that strategy. Wow, we've got one or two brave souls here saying that they do. That's fantastic. Well done. Normally in a room full of PMO leaders, you get maybe 5, possibly 10% of people saying that they do. So that's fantastic. We're beating that today. We've got quite a few people who are putting the thumbs up. So step one is make sure you understand what the strategy is. And a really great way to think about that is to go and ask those leaders, not about projects, but about the business goals, the goals of the organization. So if you were running, if you work for an ambulance service, for example, those goals might be the top level goals that they have might be around response time, safety, cost, the quality of care that's provided, those kind of things. But those can be so high level sometimes that it's difficult to quantify and to measure. So I'll always then dig in a little bit deeper and say, okay, how do we know that we're delivering a good quality of care? Right. Oh, well, that's about survival rates, and we do patient surveys, and they tell us, and we're audited by third parties who come and assess the level of care. So now we can measure it, right? We can see it, and so what you want to do is have this conversation with as many people as you can, with the executives, and try and pull this picture together and share it with them. Right? Share it back to your leadership team and say, listen, guys, I've spoken to a bunch of you, and this is what I've heard. Am I focused on the right things? If I can help you move the needle on this stuff, will that be helpful? And I pretty much guarantee they'll say yes, right? Because these are the things that they care about. So now we're not going in and we're not talking about project methodologies. We're not talking about on time, on budget. We're talking about, okay, what are the things that I can do to help you improve survival rates? Oh, okay. That's a different conversation. I like that. And then we can start to use that to drive project selection and things like that down the line, so that we're delivering the projects that add the most value. So you have some homework. I'll give you a link later on where you can access, where you'll get a copy of the slides. Or in fact, no, the slides aren't on that. So if you want a copy of the slides, I will ask the team to send it to you. If you fill in the form at the end for the downloads and things, we'll get the slides sent across. So you got some homework. Go talk to people. Fill in this template. Having told you not to focus on templates, right? Fill in this template, and then share it back to the executive team and see if you're on the right path. Because you can't deliver the value they want if you don't know what value they want, and that's what this sheet is all about. And then once you've got that, the next question is, what services should the PMO and should the project delivery team more widely be delivering to the business in order to maximize the impact on these goals? Because that's what it's about. It's not about how many projects do we complete. It's not even about how many are on time or on budget. It's about how much business value do we deliver to the organization. The organization is spending money on projects. It's pouring resources into projects, and it and the executives expect to get a return for that on that investment, right? So what are the services that will help maximize that impact? And so, here's an example list, a sample list of some services. This isn't exhaustive by any means, but some services that that PMOs and project teams deliver. And so my question to you is, where do you today put most of your effort, right? Where's your focus today? Which of those three columns is in the portfolio management, project delivery, or in kind of center of excellence? This is where all the templates and processes and tooling and all that stuff lives. So just think about it. Take a second and think honestly, where do you spend most of your time and put most of your effort? If you're a PMO and you're saying, I spend most of my time in the blue zone in project delivery, you're not alone. That's where most PMOs spend their time. But it's not where you should be spending your time. It's not where most of the value is going to come from. So let's ask the question, where should we be spending our time if we want to maximize value to the organization? Right? Where should it be? Well, here's the fun part, right? Is this process starts with asking people, what's the pain, right? So we ask the executives about the goals. That's great. So now let's have a conversation about, what's stopping us achieving those goals? What do you need from what are the things that are bugging you and annoying you? Don't ask them how to fix it. And the reason you mustn't ever ask them how to fix it is because they'll tell you how to fix it. And the chances are they're wrong, because they're not the experts on this stuff. You're the experts on this stuff, right? So ask them what the challenges are, what the pain points are. And it's things like visibility and control over where resources are going. And is there a golden thread joining the work that we're doing with our goals? And can we make decisions? Do we have the data that we need to make decisions in a timely fashion? It's all those kind of things that you'll probably hear from them. And do the same thing with the project teams, right? And say, okay, what is it that's getting in the way? What's slowing us down? Where are we wasting time on project delivery? And what templates and processes are adding value? Which ones are not adding value, right? And anything that's not adding value, get rid of it, by the way, right? Don't have templates just for the sake of templates. Get rid of anything that's not adding value. And so you go through, you have this conversation, and then you turn that into what we call a case for change, right? So there's a QR code on the screen here where we actually offer a free 1 hour session where we kind of walk you through this in detail to help you get started and help you prepare your case for change for the leadership team. So if you're interested in actually starting that process and having a conversation with your executives about how can we add more value, book a case for change and we'll help get you started. However, we've done a bunch of these. And there's the big six. These are the six things that we hear again and again and again. Different teams use different wording, but it fundamentally comes down to these big six. So it's a lack of visibility, right? Executives feel frustrated because they don't really know where the money's going and why. There's a lack of strategic alignment and prioritization. So we don't really understand what's connecting the projects we're doing with the goals that we have. Are they aligned? We don't know because our process isn't terribly robust. Projects going over budget and over time, right? So they're always late, they're always over budget, and they never deliver the benefit anyway. Risk management. What are the risks and what do we need to do to fix it? Capacity planning. How do we arrange things so that we can actually deliver projects quickly and reliably without overloading our people? That's a big one. And then data to support decision making. If you're flying blind, you can walk in, and here's a dirty little secret. So I'm the CEO of a small company. If someone walks into me and says, Stuart, I need a decision on this, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to give them a decision on it. Now, if they walk in and they say, Stuart, I need a decision on this. Here's the context and here's the data. Here are the options. And then here's the data of where we are and what might happen if we follow these different options. Now I can make a decision and I can do it with certainty, right? So it's executives will make decisions usually if you ask them to, but if you give them the data, that they know that they're flying blind, right? So if you can give them the data to make the decisions, they're going to make better decisions. They're going to be faster making those decisions. They're going to be happy doing it. So once you've got your big six, right? So this is just kind of generically, this is what we hear again and again, these particular ones. Once you've got your big six, what I want you to do is to take each one of them and just do a root cause analysis. So, the 5 whys, I've done 4 whys here just to be awkward, but the 5 whys technique. And the reason is that very often people will say, here's my pain. Okay, so I've got a headache, here's my pain. And so if you say, great, okay, so the problem is you got a headache. Yes. Okay, well, here's some paracetamol. So you take the paracetamol, your headache goes away. But tomorrow I've got the headache again. So I give you more paracetamol. And tomorrow, the next day, I've got a headache again. Because we haven't done the root cause analysis. We don't know what's causing the headache. And it turns out maybe I've got something badly wrong with me, blood pressure problem or something, right, that's causing those headaches. And so I'm going to keep getting headaches unless I go and fix the blood pressure problem. And that's the idea here. We need to understand what the root causes are before we try and fix things. Because otherwise we'll fix it and it'll be broken again tomorrow. And then we'll fix it, it'll be broken again tomorrow. So if you haven't done this before, it might go something like this. So if the problem statement is, hey, our projects are always late or over budget. So you ask why. And when you ask that question to executives, the answer you always get is, well, blame the project manager. So you look at project management, you realize that actually, the project managers are doing an okay job. So we ask them why. Why are projects failing? Well, it's because the tasks, individual deliverables are always late. So those pesky resources, project resources, they're a pain. They never deliver anything on time. So you go and you look at them, you say, are you guys idiots? And they go, no, we're not idiots, right? But you're asking us to deliver 13 things all at the same time. And every time I finish one task, you give me 3 more. That's why everything's late. Okay, so we ask why. Well, it's because we've got too many projects. Okay, why? Because our portfolio management and prioritization process is broken. Okay, so now we've got back to a root cause, right? We can fix that. And in fact, if we want to fix this, we have to fix that, right? If we want to fix it and have it stay fixed. And this is the key thing. So when you hear pain points from your executives, don't race off and try and fix them straight away. Make sure you take a step and do this root cause analysis so you understand the underlying causes of the pain that your executives have. And when you do that, what you usually find is that there are a few roots that are the root of all of the big six, right? And probably whatever your big six looks like. And this is what you're looking for. You're looking for these key capabilities that you can improve that provide big leverage. Because if we can fix those, then suddenly we fix all of these things, right? So we can fix just these three things. And these two I've put together because this is basically the portfolio management and this is project execution, right? So if you can fix these things, then you can achieve, then you should see a big improvement in the number of business goals that are achieved. So, so let's go and look at some of this then and understand a bit more of the why and the how. Um, so, so we've got in here demand and prioritization. So scary statistic, PMI statistic, 20% of projects in a typical portfolio are so badly aligned with the goals of the organization that they should be stopped. Okay, so 20% of the work you're doing, you just shouldn't be doing. And this is the result of traditional ways of doing prioritization. So the magic spreadsheet, we've all done that. Some of the PPM tools talk about doing prioritization. Generally speaking, they don't do a good job. Maybe you've tried Moscow, but the problem with Moscow is it's just a categorization technique. It's not really a prioritization technique. It doesn't help you figure out which things go into those categories. So your Moscow process basically turns into a he who shouts loudest process, right? So these are the traditional tools that we've used to do prioritization, and they don't work. This is what's giving us that 20% waste. And if you're investing $10 million in projects, 20% waste is $2 million. But it's worse than that because we expect a return on investment from that money. Right. So maybe let's say it's a 2 or 3 times ROI. We're actually losing $6 million of value. We're losing, let's say it again. We're losing $6 million of value on $10 million of investment. Wow. That's 60% of the amount that we're investing, right? We're losing to opportunity cost. This is huge. So if we can eliminate that 20%, we can add a huge amount of value to the organization. We can deliver that extra $66 million in this case of value to the organization. Suddenly, the executives stop saying, "Why are we spending money on a PMO? What value? What's the PMO ever done for us?" Right? That goes away because you can point at it and you can say, "That's the value we've added." Okay. So it's super clear. Now, there's a lot of research into how to do prioritization. We don't have time to go into it today. I could easily fill an hour. In fact, in the past, I've filled a 3-hour workshop just talking about prioritization. We're not going to do that today. You'll be glad to hear. But the key thing about prioritization that it's all about figuring out which are the biggest eggs, right? Which are the projects that deliver the most value. And there's a bunch of research into how to do this. And it turns out that there is a right way to do prioritization, and it's not your spreadsheet or the PPM module. So, for example, this was research done by the University of New South Wales. They looked at over 100 methods of prioritization and found that the best method is something called AHP, Analytic Hierarchy Process. Again, there's going to be a QR code at the end where you can download loads of ebooks and how-to guides and videos and all kinds of things. So don't worry about the details right now. The message here is that there is a right way in a complex organization to do prioritization. It's this thing called AHP. So if you want to add a load of value for your executives quite quickly, go learn about that. And basically what AHP is doing is it's basically giving better quality decisions. It reduces the noise. There's lots of noise and randomness in decision making. There's a lot of he who shouts loudest. There's lots of blind spot. Every human being on the planet has blind spots and biases, right? And AHP helps iron all of that out. And so you end up with a better aligned portfolio with less waste, right? So less value is being leaked out of your portfolio in those wasteful projects. So this is great. We now know which projects are most valuable. And we can even look at value for money. You just take your value score and divide it by the cost of the project. And we can even look at our projects, what's the value for which projects offer the best value for money. That's fantastic. But there's a challenge, which is that getting that alignment is great, but in most organizations, the bottleneck's the people, the delivery resources. It's not really about the money, right? Sometimes it is, but usually it's about the people as well. And I hope you appreciate how much effort I went there to jam all those ducks into the bottle. By the way, poor things. We'll let them out later on. Cool. So let's think about this. Let's think about the resources. So this is a fun little chart. Excuse me. So what we're doing is we're looking at what's the utilization rate of our resources on this axis. And we're looking at how much business value actually gets delivered on this axis. Now, obviously, if you don't do many projects, right, low utilization, we're not really delivering much value. So we're going to add some projects. This is good. We're adding more value. But up here, somewhere around about 80 to 85% utilization rate. And there's actually an equation for this, by the way, out of queuing theory. So around 80 to 85% of utilization rate, the queuing time for everything goes up. You start to get resource contention, collisions, things like that, and things slow down. And so if you add more projects after that, you don't get more value, you get less. Now, if you need me to, before we get to that, right? So you're getting less value if you do more. And most organizations that we talk to are somewhere over here, right? They're way beyond 100% capacity. They're just trying to do too much. And if you look at that, right, you're delivering the same amount of business value if we come across here as you would do if you were only working at 20% capacity, right? So your people are on fire, right? They're running around as fast as they can. Everybody's shouting at everybody else, but we're actually not delivering any more value than we would do if we were over here. And so if you need me to come and have a conversation with your executives about this, by the way, please book one of those cases for change meetings, and I will come and I will have that conversation with your executives, because this is a combination of the PMO and the executives working together, not doing their job if you are overloaded like this. Okay, so this is something that you really need to tackle as top priority. Right? Now, in the real world, of course, what we want to do then is put ourselves on top of that hill, and there are AI tools now that'll do that for you. TransparentChoice is one of the companies that does that, but it'll work out given the shape of your resources, because you don't have one type of resource. You've got lots of different types of resources, and the projects are all pulling from different resource pools and different amounts. Right? It's really complicated to try and figure out which combination of projects is both deliverable and delivers maximum value. So we built, as I say, a special AI module that will do that for you. Now, another way of looking at this is to ask what happens when you overload people. And the American Psychology Association did some research. And for complex tasks, which project management is, for complex tasks, when people are task switching, you can't multitask, by the way, when you're delivering complex tasks. When people are task switching, they lose up to 40% of their capacity to the task switching. Right, that's a big problem. That'll, if you're throwing away 40% of your capacity to deliver projects, you're throwing away 40% of the value that you should be delivering to the business. Right, so we've got to fix this. So why does it happen? Why do we get this? Well, imagine you do your annual planning and you approve a bunch of projects, and then the first day of the financial year rolls around, and the execs all come in and they say, great, start my project. Everyone's shouting at you, start my project. So you want to be helpful, so you start your project. You start with project 1. Then you jump to project 2, we jump to project 3. Now we can go to those execs and say, hey, we've started your project, and they seem happy. Then we go back to project 1, project 2, project 3, and now we've got the second team kicking in, right? So we've done the discovery phase, and we're in the design phase or the build phase, right? And we're going project 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We're task hopping, right? So eventually, we get all the way over here, and we get first value, right? The first project completes. Hurrah! We've got first value. But because we're task switching, remember that statistic? We're losing up to 40% of our capacity. So this is not good, right? So it feels good because we're doing stuff, we're busy, right? But it's not actually good. We're wasting a whole load of capacity here. So how do we fix that? Well, we stagger the projects. So the idea is that and this is based on theory of constraints and critical chain thinking, right? So, and there's a great book on that, by the way, which I happen to have a copy of on my desk by a guy called Mike Hannon. Anybody that's interested, you can download that on Amazon. It's called The CIO's Guide to Breakthrough Project Portfolio Performance. And I'll send a link to anybody that wants it. So the idea is that you start your project and you only start the next project when you've got resources available to deliver it. So you'll see this light blue line is our most constrained resource, right? So we're only starting these projects when we're going to have that blue resource, not overloaded, but single tasking or as close to it as we can get. And two amazing things happen when you do that. First of all, notice we're delivering projects earlier. That means we're delivering value earlier. So we're going to get a higher return on investment from those projects. Hurrah, your execs are happy. Second thing that happens is because we get our 40% capacity back, that means we can squeeze in some extra projects. No extra resources, no extra money. We can just squeeze in more resources. Okay, so why don't we all do this? Well, because it's difficult, right? I often hear PMO leaders talking about, trying to come up with the right sequence where we don't overload people at any point in the year, where we don't have any hotspots. It takes me a day or two to do it. And so when something changes, and things always change in project land, right? Things always change. So when things change, I don't update it because it's just too hard. It takes too long. So your plan's out of date, your people are overloaded, and your productivity drops off, right? And so, and all of a sudden, you're losing up to that 40% again. Now, 2 or 3 years ago, right, I would have sympathy with that, but no more, right? So there are tools out there, and again, we do this, but there are other guys out there that do this as well. Happy to share with you if you talk to me. That can figure out how to sequence your project so you don't get the hotspots. So you're not overloading your people. So you get to maximize the flow, get that 40% back, fewer overruns. And in our case, the AI basically simulates thousands of scenarios to figure out which one is going to give you the most value the quickest without overloading your people. All right, so there's no excuse for not doing this anymore. There are tools out there that can do it for you and do it in seconds. So we've talked about how to some techniques that you can use that really have an impact on the value. And you'll notice that none of those were really about project management templates and tools and methodologies and all that stuff. It's all about portfolio management, aligning with the business goals, maximizing the flow to those business goals, and addressing the root causes from our root cause analysis earlier on, right? So when you think this way, benefits first, value first, then root cause analysis, you can build a plan that really drives value. And then, so how do you get that started? Well, you turn it into what we call this case for change that I mentioned earlier. So it's identifying the pain points and the root causes. Then identify solutions to those problems, right? To those pain points, those root causes. And then building a business case that augments this story. And so I'm going to talk you through some of that next. Now, when you're building a case for change, right? When you're talking to executives, you're actually talking to 3 different zones, personalities, whatever you want to call them, right? I call them the head, the heart, and the heartbreak. Okay. And you need to cover all 3 if you want to be really, really convincing. So the head is the business case. It's the financial case, right? So in this case, you put in, how much are we investing in our portfolio? What's our current waste because we're not prioritizing? How much are we going to save? That gives us a certain amount of money. What's the ROI that we expect from projects, and how long do projects take, and how late are they normally, and how much are we going to reduce that? So by delivering projects earlier, we're going to save some money and deliver extra value, and so on, right? And there's a bunch of different things that you can include in the financial case. So you need a financial business case, sure, right? That's the head. And here's an example of the kind of calculation. You'll know how to do this. Okay, fab. Then let's move on to the heart, right? So the heart is about those pain points that you asked them. So I just don't know how the projects we're doing support our strategy. Well, if we can take that pain away, that feels good. As an exec, I can relax. I know where the money's going. I know why it's going where it's going, and I feel like I've got control over it. That makes my heart feel good, right? So that's different to the head. The head is quite logical and financial usually, or at least service levels or something like that you're talking about. The heart is about their personal pain. And then the heartbreak is about, this is where you lean into the fact that, do you know what? Do you remember that project last year? Everything exploded. 3 people were fired. Our customers were screaming at us. We lost $3 million and it was a total disaster, right? That's the project you put in here. You say, you remember that project? Well, if we do this, if we make these changes and address these root causes, then that need never happen again, and you will never be heartbroken again. Okay, so you've got the head, the heart, and the heartbreak. Now we're going to jump back into Menti, I think, now. And I want to ask you a question. I want you to think for a second. Of those three, the head, the heart, and the heartbreak, which do you think are most important in terms of winning the executives' buy-in for doing this? Is it the head, the heart, or the heartbreak? Jump into the Menti. Let's have a few more votes. See what you guys think. Yeah, keep going, keep going. It's always interesting when you do this to see what people think. Cool. Love it. Brilliant. So let me tell you what. So what the research says is it's absolutely not the head. The head, people decide with their heart, whether it's through the heart or the heartbreak. People decide with their heart, and then they justify with their head. So you have to have the head, right? The head has to be there. But if you really want to get someone on board, you have to think about the heart and the heartbreak. That's where the value lives. Now, my experience, right? So now I'm coming away from what the research says, right? The psychology research, and I'm coming to my personal experience. My experience is that the heartbreak is often how you can trigger. It's the catalyst that can start something, right? So when something really bad happens, that's your opportunity to jump in and say, great, let me figure out how that never happens again, right? And then the heart, the combination of the heartbreak and the heart is how you really get people on board, right? So the heartbreak is an opportunity to trigger and catalyze a discussion, but and then the heart is really where what drives people, their own personal pain, and obviously heartbreak is part of the heart pain. Fabulous. So we've got kind of a process where we build this case for change. We identify things that we could do, Mr. Executive, right? If you really want to bridge this gap with executives, we're going to speak their language. We're going to understand their pain. We're going to do root cause analysis on the pain. We're going to show them how we're going to fix that pain, right? So already they're sort of looking at us very differently to they were at the beginning of this conversation. And then the key thing is to break that into 90-day sprints. Most execs think in 90-day cycles. Big generalization. There are going to be exceptions, but generally speaking, 90-day sprints are about the right size for an executive, right? So if you break all of this into So if you break the solutions into 90-day sprints, and every 90 days you deliver something that makes some pain go away, then your exec's going to be looking at you going, we really like this person. And you can go and, the pressure comes off and you can kind of relax a bit and really relax into delivering, because suddenly we're on the same page where we understand what they're trying to achieve. We understand the pain. We understand the root causes of the pain, and we're fixing it, right? And as soon as you start to do that, the relationship with executives changes completely. Don't take my word for it. These guys did it, and there's a webinar here that's in the slides. So when we get to the QR code, make sure you fill that in so that you can access the slides. But there's a short video here interviewing Mike about the American Planning Association's experience. And I specifically wanted to ask him the question, did you manage to double the strategic impact that you deliver to the organization? And his answer was, oh yeah, or even 150% more, right? There was no doubt, right? So it can absolutely work when you take this kind of an approach. If you're interested, go watch that. And how is it working? Well, if you think about what we've done, right? You see these two dimensions, right? We've got a value. You've got project management, so the delivery, the execution, call it what you like, and the portfolio management. These are the two levers you've got as a PMO and as a PMO. That's it. Those are really the only two levers that you've got. And there's lots of things that you do to make those things happen, but those are the actual levers. So if you focus more on this, then you can improve things a bit. Yeah, sure. You'll never get to 100% perfection, right? So that 100% line is, if we executed all the projects in the portfolio perfectly, we're going to get there, right? So you probably never get there. The PMI did some research, and the top performing organizations around the world deliver about 93% of projects, deliver the intended benefit. I think it was 93, 92, 93, somewhere around there. However, when you combine improving the execution with improving the portfolio management, first of all, because the portfolio management means we're working on bigger eggs and we're able to deliver more eggs, we get that sort of 40% capacity back. We can actually deliver more projects than we would have done, right, in the old world. And we're delivering projects that are adding more value individually, right, because we're picking the right ones. We're getting rid of that 20% waste. So the area of this chart gets much bigger if you combine those things. And if you can document that, if you can show that to your executives and say, look, this is how I am helping you increase the amount of return, business impact that you get from your portfolio, then they're going to love you to pieces. Right. And again, it's not rocket science. If you can eliminate the 20% waste, if you can get, another 20% by eliminating, by putting yourself on top of the higher hill, right? If we can get, 40% back, then we've doubled our ROI, right? It's that simple. I'm not saying everybody will double your ROI, but if you can increase your ROI by 20%, 30%, 40%, and show that to your executives, demonstrate it to your executives, then you will have plugged the gap, right? You will have bridged the gap between the PMO and the executives, because you're delivering the value that they want. Okay, so quick recap. How to bridge the gap: speak in the business language, first of all. Then identify executive pain, identify root causes, build your case for change, right, to fix the root causes, not the first causes, not the proximal causes, but the root causes. Build that case for change, and then start to deliver the solution in 90-day sprints, so that you're showing regular progress and value to the executives. Do that, and you'll end up with a really happy exec and a happy set of project leaders. Just for fun, we have a newsletter that goes out, and we've started a new thing called Duck of the Month, because we talk a lot about ducks. Remember, no one cares if you got a boy duck or a girl duck, because it's all about eggs. So we have a lot of fun with ducks. And I thought this month's Duck of the Month was kind of appropriate for this. Because this is all about understanding where the organization wants to go. That's the wisdom. And then aligning your execution not overloading people, but aligning execution to that strategy. And then strategy becomes reality, and the PMO should be the bridge. All too often today, they're not, but the PMO should be the bridge. And hopefully, today's talk has helped you figure out how you might get there. So good luck on that journey. There's a couple of quick QR codes here. And apologies, I meant this looks like it's an old slide. There should be the PDUs here, so I'll find that in a second, or maybe Ona, you could drop the link to the PDUs into the chat or something. Link to get the PDUs. The QR code on the left, if you scan that, you'll get access to a whole bunch of ebooks on prioritization, capacity planning, PMO services, how to figure out which PMO services make sense for you, and so on and so forth. So there's a whole bunch of videos, books, guides on how to make this journey work. So click on scan that now. And if you want a bit of support kicking off your own case for change, just book book a meeting here. Doesn't cost you anything to get started, and we'll get you pointed in the right direction. Okay. So that's about it. We're all done. My clock says I've done it with 20 seconds to spare. Thank you, everybody. It's been fun. Don't forget to go book that meeting, get started. Obadiah, are you still with us?
Yeah, I am here.
You are there. All right, my friend, over to you.
Yeah, it's thank you very much, Stuart. It's been such an insightful, and I'm sure everyone has learned something. We have a couple of questions that have been asked, so I'll quickly read them to you so that you can take it. I think the first one is from myself. Can we look at the heartbreak, as a combination of the heart and the head, like making the exec see the pain points and its business value? So that's the first question. Hi, Stuart.
Obadiah, I'm not sure if you're talking to me. The sound has suddenly gone dead on my laptop, but it looks like you've stopped talking. So thank you to everybody.
Yeah. So the first question is, can you hear me? Hi, Stuart. Hi, Stuart. So if you can't hear me, can you quickly check the Q&A tab? The questions are already stated there.
Hi, Stuart Owner here. It seems one of you is having a background noise there. I don't know if it's a bit or you. There are two questions on the Q&A tab. Can you hear me, Stuart? Stuart? Okay. Okay.